What is up, everybody? Welcome back to another edition of the Sheehan Show with me, Sean Sheehan, here on Sherdog.com. And I must tell you before I get going that BetUS.com is offering our listeners an incredible 125% bonus on their deposits for UFC Fight Night Font versus Guerra. Use the code Sherdog and get $2,500 in extra money to make Fight Night even better. At BetUS.com, you can not only bet on each fight, but they have loads of awesome parlay bets to choose from too. Bet live during the fights, and your winnings are paid within hours. Start the fight at BetUS.com. Use that code Sherdog. Alright, everyone, so what I'm here today to talk about is basically the weekend in mixed martial arts. I'm going to pick out one or two talking points from the weekend and just kind of discuss them. I won't be going through every fight or anything like that. I might have a quick run through it for the last 2 or 3 minutes of this. Some notable results or some notable fights maybe I thought about during this weekend. But the first thing I want to talk about is women's MMA, because sometimes we take it for granted, and you know what? Taking it for granted is actually a good sign, because sometimes you see it in other sports, and you know, it's not normal where women's side of the sport is at, you know, the very apex. Like Barcelona last weekend had, I think, 95,000 people at a women's match, and it was brilliant. It was the best ever, but it was special, you know, it was abnormal. It was something we've never seen before in horse racing here. Rachel Blackmore, she's a fantastic jockey, but she's been winning lots of stuff over the last couple of years, and it's new and it's very good and it's abnormal. But women's MMA being at the very apex, being at the very tops of our weekends, of our cards, even of our cards of the year, is a more and more normal thing all the time. It's not abnormal, and it's something I think we really should take pride in as MMA people, MMA fans, people covering MMA, you know, the fighters themselves and everything like that. It is brilliant. You know, it's great because we came from a place, and you know, I think it's apropos this week that we saw Liz Carmouche lifting that belt, and I'll talk more about that fight and the ending of it later on. But the fact that she was the first woman to ever step foot in an octagon to fight, and then she goes on 9 years later, I think it is, to lift the world title. It's just phenomenal. And look, it shows you how far she has come and how great she has been over the years and how amazing it is that she can keep going. But it also shows you how kind of far women's MMA has come. Now, maybe you'll say, oh, the same person is there 9 years later, but she has improved and she's gone with the sport. So to take that for what it's worth. But in those 9 years, I think the sport has improved so much, and we've gone to kind of a different level now in the sport. Like, I remember not too long ago talking about, you know, I think the discourse, to steal a phrase from my good friends Chad and Ben, around Ronda Rousey was how, you know, I know the sport didn't start with Liz Carmouche and Ronda Rousey. Let me say that. There was, you know, obviously Cyborg before that, and Julie Kedzie and everyone else who came before, and Gina Carano and all. So, you know, but I'm talking about at this sort of level of MMA, where it started off at the UFC level and the Bellator level. Now it was in Strikeforce and stuff, and Elite XC and things before that. So let me make sure to say that. But the discourse around a lot of mixed martial arts, women's mixed martial arts discussion has been around and was around Ronda Rousey for years. And when Ronda Rousey lost her couple of fights and kind of ignominiously, as I just said that at 7 a.m, it's a tough one, left the sport, it kind of turned into a hate campaign for a lot of people, for a lot of fans, and even some media members who, you know, maybe don't like Ronda Rousey as others, and you know, people. Okay, look, fair enough. A lot of that is because of the way she left the sport, and because, you know, maybe she wasn't a good loser or whatever it might be. But I think that kind of coloured where she was and what place she had in mixed martial arts and what she did for the sport. And just for this discussion here, because otherwise I could go on for 2 hours talking about this, the place she had in mixed martial arts, what I was attempting to say there 5 minutes ago before I started just blathering on about nothing, I always kind of mention her as maybe the Heist Gracie of mixed martial arts, but if not, maybe the Tito Ortiz, maybe the Chuck Liddell, that sort of era. And now, you know, we're moving on to the next era, because like women's MMA, we know what happened when they came into the UFC. There was more money. It obviously drew more women in. There was more coaches paying attention, more promotions paying attention to women's MMA and all that once it came into the UFC. So the level has started to rise and rise and rise and rise, whereas before it probably couldn't have, you know. Although, you know, the way mixed martial arts has gone, maybe it would have regardless of the UFC, but it doesn't matter. That's not a discussion for now. It has because it came into the UFC. And now we have, I remember talking about it recently as well, we have a level where before we had Ronda Rousey and Chris Cyborg. We had two very good top fighters in the world. And, you know, we had the Kedsies, we had the Kranas, other good fighters, but we had two at the very, very top. Now we have Cyborg. We have, you know, obviously Ronda Rousey's gone, but we have Kayla Harrison, we have Amanda Nunes, we have Juliana Pena, we have Valentina Shevchenko, we have Rose Namajunas, we have Carla well, maybe not Carla Esparza, but you know what I mean. We have Joanna Jędrzejczyk, we have Zhang Weili. Loads and loads and loads of people who you could make a top 10 pound for pound easily out of. You could argue some of them should be higher than others and all. And that is a great sign. We no longer have, there's one or two outliers, great fighters. Now we have multiple great fighters. And the reason I say this on this weekend, because I 4 cards pulled up in front of me here. We leave the PFL on the side for a second. You know, not to say PFL haven't done great things for women's MMA, and you know we'll see Kayla Harrison obviously coming up shortly. But UFC Fight Night 205, Lemos versus Andrade, women's MMA. UFC Bellator 278, Velasquez versus Carmouche, women's MMA. Bellator 279, Cyborg versus Blinko, women's MMA. 3 big cards this weekend, and I don't think I heard anyone else point that out. Now maybe they did. I'm not a big one for listening to other people's podcasts and stuff, so maybe they did, but I'm here to point it out, and I'm glad to point it out because I think it's something that we, as I mentioned at the start, we do take it for granted. And we should, because it should be normal. It should be what we see every day. But the fact that MMA has come so long, as I was saying at the start, like Dana White didn't want women in the UFC. He didn't want Ronda Rousey in the UFC. He didn't think it'd work. He didn't think people would appreciate it. But the fact that women's MMA came into it, the UFC, and came into the zeitgeist, I suppose, of mixed martial arts fans for a while. It took a while. Like, I could be all rosy in the garden here and say, no, I remember when, I think it was Shogun and Dan Henderson too, maybe. The Ronda Rousey fight was over and people were giving out about that. But people don't give out anymore, and they haven't for a good while. And that is a great sign. And I think we should be proud of that as mixed martial arts fans. And we should be proud of our women in mixed martial arts as well. I think it's absolutely fantastic. So fair play. And I think, you know, the UFC and Bellator and everyone else have done a great job. And it's great to see it. Before we move on, I'm going to say UFC Fight Night Font versus Vera is more fun when you bet at betus.com. Use the code Sherdog and get an incredible 125% bonus up to $2,500. Font is the clear favourite, so get in now or even choose to bet to win via KO and increase your winnings. At betus.com, you can not only make the fights more fun by betting throughout the fights, you can make the fights more fun by betting throughout the fights. Start the fight at betus.com and use that code Sherdog. Another thing I want to just say about this weekend is Hawaii. And I spoke last week in the preview, and I spoke somewhere anyway about how mixed martial arts at the level of UFC, at the Bellator level, we could talk about PFL and stuff, and actually have a podcast coming out talking about PFL, so maybe I leave that for there. But it's very samey, you know. You have, I went back this week, and last week, Andre Filo, I think it was, wasn't it? I'm not sure who it was anyway. I watched a fight, someone fighting last week who fought on Fight Island, and I didn't realise until I checked the Sherdog page or the Wikipedia page or whatever it was afterwards and realised, this fight was in Abu Dhabi. So they made this big song and dance, right, in the UFC about, we're going to have Fight Island, it's going to be special, it's going to be really different to what we've ever had before, you know, we're going to be sailing in on boats and there's lads going to be fighting in sand, and then it turns out that a year and a half later you go back and you watch one of those fights and it just looks like any other fight in the Apex. It just looks like any other fight in, you know, I don't know, wherever it would be, Ohio or somewhere, you know. There's no difference. And that that really kind of bums me out a little bit to steal an American phrase. Like, I love when I go back and I happen upon a UFC 200 fight, right? And you see the yellow canvas and there's something a little bit different. Or you go back and, it's a WEC fight you're watching, or, something. There's just something a little bit different about it. I think it's great. Like, if you go back and watch the McGregor and Mendez walkouts, the fact, Sinead Kavanagh and whoever the country guy in America was that was walking out Chad Mendez, it was different, it was great, it was fun. And we don't see it that much in MMA anymore. We really, really don't. Like, it's great for me in Ireland to be here and we see the zombie walkout with Peter Queally and Aisling Daly back in the day doing it as well. And, having James Gallagher and the raucous crowd, it is different. It feels better. It feels brilliant. And we don't see enough of that in MMA. But 100% credit to Bellator for making the Hawaiian event special. You can never, ever, ever go back and watch that Ilima-Lei Macfarlane versus Justine Kish fight ever again. If you're, let's say, Ilima-Lei or Justine Kish gets a title shot down the line and you're, I'm doing tape study for it or whatever, and I go back and watch and go, oh, that was in Hawaii. You'll know straight away. You go back and watch a Fight Island fight and it could be anywhere. It could be in Hawaii, at UFC Hawaii, that never happened. It could be in Japan, it could be in Ireland, it could be in Birmingham, it could be anywhere. It could be anywhere. And I don't like that. Now, the UFC, they put on so many cards, and Bellator put on so many cards and everything. I couldn't expect everyone to be different, but if you have something different, make it different. If you have a card in Ireland, do something, do something. Get that Irish flag up behind it, or do up the arena in some sort of way. Have an Irish singer. There's plenty of Irish singers that'd sing the main event people out. Look what they did. And like, I'm not sure of the whole relevance of all the walkout and everything, but Ilima-Lei Macfarlane loved it and the crowd were massively up for it. And I don't need to understand. I'm sure most people listening to this, don't understand it. Maybe you do. Maybe in America and there's a lot of people, Hawaiians, listening to this or something, they understand it more than some lad in the west of Ireland. But I didn't need to understand it to understand how special it was, and it was 100% special. It was brilliant. It was just brilliant. They went to Ilima-Lei kind of half backstage, and she was singing. And I don't normally like when they go to people backstage and all of that, but they did that, and I thought it was brilliant, and they just made it special. They just even before that in the 278 event. They had the Hawaiian shirts. They had Josh in the Hawaiian shirt and John and even the judges, I think, were in Hawaiian shirts. And, it's not... Okay, I don't know. You can have your opinions on that, but it's different. It's different. There's no denying that it's different. And the fact that it is different makes it good. I've talked, and the podcast coming up that I talk about the PFL, I kind of mentioned that as well. That they're trying to make something different. Like... I think sometimes, right, with non-UFC promotions, that they try to be like the UFC so much it actually is counterintuitive for them. You could try to be like the UFC all you want, but you're never going to be the UFC in one way, right? And another way, being different to the UFC is a good thing, because people don't want to see the same thing over and over and over again. People are getting a bit sick of the UFC. Like, okay, the levels of fights and everything like that, but people want to see the glitz and the glamour. Look at the Tyson Fury, whoever he fought last night fight. Who did he fight? Dillian White. It was such a mismatch, you'd almost forget. But look, it went on a mile too long. But the glitz and the glamour and the fireworks going off and getting up in the crown and having 7 walkout tunes and everything like that. It was different. It was fun. It was memorable. And why can't we create more memories in MMA like that? Like, what really annoys me, and maybe this is a me thing more than anyone else sort of thing, but when they show a fighter backstage, like an hour before they're due to fight, like, why? The best thing, do you ever go to a concert and you're waiting for, let's say you go to an Eminem concert, right, and you're waiting for Eminem to come out. Imagine if Eminem was just like walking around and you saw him like an hour before and be like, oh yeah, he's there, he's coming back in. And he came out and be like, yeah, but you're waiting. Is he there? Did he turn up? Did he arrive? And then he comes out and it's like, that's insanity, That's what I want. That's the build that we need to get. And I think fight promotions need to do that better. I think the UFC need to do it better. But I think it's an easy way for the likes of Bellator, the likes of PFL, maybe a little bit different, but whoever else, to be different and to do things that make them kind of not look like the UFC. So kudos to Bellator for doing it. This whole weekend, you'll never go back and watch one of those fights and not realise that it was a fight in Hawaii. And to me, that's absolutely brilliant, and Bellator deserve a huge kudos to that. While I'm here and while I'm on my positive run as well, Amanda Guerra, she is brilliant. She is brilliant. She's on the desk. She's the main lady on the desk for Bellator with Josh Thompson. I actually think Josh does a pretty good job as well, honestly. And I remember a few years ago, I didn't think Josh was the best. But I think he's improved an awful lot. Maybe doing the podcast and maybe like being a regular broadcaster has helped him, and that I think Kenny Florian is another guy who's improved. But Amanda Guerra on that desk is brilliant. She, like some people, I think Brendan Fitzgerald this weekend kind of fell into the trying to know too much about MMA role. Like, he's only been watching MMA for a couple of years, we all know it, but I think we all appreciated he was trying to do his best. He's trying to learn everything. He's trying to become, the next guy, but he's also like leaning on Cormier, leaning on Felder, leaning on whoever's there. I feel in the last one, I've spoken to another few people about this, and they agree he's kind of stepped over that mark. And if you look at someone like Amanda Guerra, I don't think she has. I think she realises what she is. I think she realises who she has to feed off of. And I think she does an absolutely fantastic job at the job she is staked to do. So very, very good stuff. I had to mention that as well. Right. Let's talk a little bit about the more negative sides of things, or the more controversial a couple of happenings. So the Juliana Velasquez, Liz Carmouche finish. So obviously, if you haven't seen the fight, Velasquez was dominating the fight. Came to the end of the, let me just check it. I think was it the third round or the fourth round? It was the fourth round, according to Sherdog.com. 13 seconds left in the fourth round. Liz Carmouche ended up getting on top of Velasquez on the ground. She got a crucifix, and she was landing a few shots. But it was like those shots where you kind of, you have your elbow, but you're kind of like sliding the elbow against the head as Velasquez was trying to like move her head up to tuck her chin under the body of Carmouche. So it wasn't massive, but then Liz kind of pushed her down, and as she did, in my opinion, this is what I saw. I think Velasquez tried to get her left arm in, so put her head back to try to get room to get her left arm in. If you're not watching this in video, I'm playing this scenario out. As she did that, it obviously opened up a little bit of an opportunity for Liz. She landed 2 elbows. Then the camera kind of changed. I think she landed a third one, and then Mike Beltran came in to stop it. For me, that is a really, really early stoppage. This is a title fight. You're into the fourth round of a fight. You're dominating. Now, that shouldn't matter in itself, the fourth round you're dominating. The title fight shouldn't massively matter either, but I think, look, Big John McCarthy always says you have to be aware of the position you're in. You have to be aware of the fight you're in, and there's more on the line here, absolutely. But she hadn't taken enough, even if this was a 3-round opening fight on a Cage Warriors card or a Bama card or whatever it might be. I think she took some shots. No, I said it properly. I don't think, like some people are saying, if it had gone the other 13 seconds, all it would have been was 7 or 8 or 10 more elbows. I actually don't think so, to be honest. I don't think, like, what reason would Juliana Velasquez have for not tucking her chin back if her left hand wasn't able to get inside? Like, she's held down in a position, we all know the crucifix position, but the one thing you can move is your head and get it up and tuck yourself. Could she have done that for 13 seconds? Do you think that's beyond the realms of possibility? Like, no one could possibly argue that she was knocked out, that she wasn't conscious or anything. The argument here is maybe she was overwhelmed, or that she was not intelligently defending herself. I don't think 2 clean elbows, maybe 3 clean elbows is overwhelmed, especially with the ones before it were like very minimal. And how is like not tucking your chin and then trying to get your arm in not an intelligent defense in the toughest position you can be in mixed martial arts? Like, she tucked her chin, tried to get her arm in like milliseconds before he stopped it. Like, there was an intelligent defense there all the time. Like, when you move your head back, okay, maybe he thought she was knocked out, and maybe that's the reason it is. And he can, anyone can make a mistake, and maybe he doesn't think it's a mistake. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe he saw her eyes rolling back. Maybe I'm wrong. I didn't see that. I know I saw another angle. Someone sent it to me today, and I didn't see that. So maybe he saw it, but it just, to me, was a bad stoppage and a very, very sad way for Velasquez to lose her title. Now, when I say that as well, I think everyone is very happy for Liz Carmouche. I mentioned her earlier on. Fought Rousey on 9 years ago. She's been around forever. Still only 24 fights. It seems like there's a lot more than that. But so happy for Liz Carmouche, while that's still, you have to feel bad for Velasquez. Now, Elima Lane McFarlane, if she had won on Saturday night, she probably would have been fighting for the title next, but the fact she lost makes the rematch probably more likely here. So I think we're going to see that. So let me know in the comment section if you agree, disagree. And a lot of people over on Twitter I saw were saying, no, it was a good stoppage. Most of whom, though, said it the next day. I was talking to Artem Labov about it, and he was kind of, he disagreed with me at the start, and then I was talking to him a bit, and he kind of he was coming on, and which is fair enough. But I think everyone watching it live, and let me know if you were watching it live and you agree with me, maybe, or if you disagree with me, fine. I feel like loads of people watching it live thought it was a bad stoppage, and people watching it back thought it was a good stoppage, because, like, when it's slowed down, when it's not in the context of the fight as well, it looks very different. Another one as well, we're talking about the context of the fight, is the Dean Barry versus Mike Jackson one. Now, people might this is going to be a tough one for me, because people are going to say, oh, you're biased because he's Irish and all like that. I'm not. There was a very similar one last week, and I feel like I called it a similar sort of way. Like, the there was an illegal strike the last week, the one with the head in the ground. Who was it? I don't know who it was. The referee told him, well, I'm taking a point, that should be a disqualification. You're taking the point right there, right? You have seen an intention for him to land the strike, you should be given it. Now, in this one, it was a very, very different one, right? Because, that one should have been, that one wasn't given as a disqualification and went to points because of that. Obviously, this one, and it was a no contest and went to points. And this one, it was in the first round, so if it would have been a no contest, it would have been a no contest. It wouldn't have gone to points or everything like that. But this was given as a disqualification. The one last week wasn't given as a disqualification, even though he had taken a point, because he said you knew what you were doing, and it wasn't given as a disqualification, right? So he had said there was intent there, and he still didn't disqualify him. He went to a no contest, and he ended up winning the fight, right? So this one, Chris Tognoni had judged that there was intent there. He did say it to him, to be fair, so he can back himself up. So he made that decision, and he made it the way he thought it was right. But I can't agree with the fact that there was intention there behind this eye poke. Now, it was a very bad eye poke, and absolutely have no problem with Mike Jackson not being able to go on, but I think it should have been a no contest, because if you go back and you look at the fight, you have to look at this in context as well. You can't just look at the eye poke, slow down. You have to look at where it came from. So there was a barrage of different exchanges. Dean hit him with a knee, and Mike came back and hit him with a nice, was it a left hand, and Dean hit him with a few, and then Mike Jackson's back was up against the cage. Dean had his hand around the back of the neck of Mike, and he was holding him, and he was obviously, either going to try to land a knee, or I think he threw a few punches. And Mike kind of turned into the cage. As he did, Dean's hand kind of came around. He tried to catch on to the back of the neck again, but Mike's head had obviously moved. Then Dean, as he did that, was kind of trying to catch, but he saw Mike moving, so he pushed him at the same time. And as he did, like, the two fingers just implanted themselves into the eye of Mike Jackson. There was no way in hell that he meant to gouge his eyes out. There was just no way. Like, it wasn't one of these ones where they're fighting and he's, you have the hands out and then you have the fingers out. I'd have no sympathy whatsoever if someone was standing with their fingers out, they poke someone in the eye and then they couldn't continue. That, to me, is 100% disqualification, because it's in the rule book. When you're fighting like that, you can't have your hands out. You can't have your fingers out. That's a rule I think that needs to be upheld more, and I would agree with everyone saying if that was a disqualification. This was not that. This was in an exchange up against the cage where everything was moving at 100 miles an hour. Dean had his hand in a completely legal position on the back of Mike Jackson's neck, holding on to him. Mike moved, Dean moved, he tried to push him off as his hand was in a certain position, and it happened to go into his eyes. If that can be intentional, Dean Barry has fucking the control of Steven Seagal or something here. Like, it's absolutely crazy. Like, there's no way. Like, if you went and he appealed it, he'd probably get turned down because all these appeals get turned down. But if it went to a court of law, there's no way. There is just no way. And these ones, I think probably last week's decisions actually fed into this, honestly, because sometimes you see them like, oh, the referee's probably thinking, oh, he did that wrong. If I get that, I'm going to give that as a disqualification. And then he gets it. It's a totally different one. You have to judge them all by their merits. This shouldn't have been a disqualification. It should have. This is exactly what a no contest should be. It was an eye poke that absolutely wasn't meant, and it ended the fight. That's what a no contest is. Okay, the ball kick came before it. That was a bad one. I don't think he meant that either, but did he take a point? I think he did take a point, didn't he? Or maybe he didn't. But if he did, fair enough, it caused damage. He took a point for the eye poke actually before he finished, and that's maybe why he had to finish it. But it's just because the ball kick came before it, and I don't know, it was a weird one. It was definitely a weird one. I actually spoke to a ref about that. Even if he did take a point, you still don't have to give it a disqualification afterwards, because if you don't feel it ended the fight, if you don't just think it was the point is there because it took a pint's worth of the person away from the rest of the fight or whatever, so that's why you're docking the point. But yeah, that was my takeaway from it. Maybe I'm biased. Maybe I've the Irish roast in the glasses on, but this is actually more about the rules, and I've thought a lot about it over the last week and the situations and how they should go. I don't think this went the way it should have gone, to be honest. I don't think the one last week, actually the Martin Boudet one as well, I don't think that went the way it should have been. I think that was a clean shot. I think he landed correctly, and I think that should have been a knockout. But anyway, I'll just quickly run through a few of the big wins here as well. I'm sure you heard about them all, but Jessica Andrade, very, very good standing arm triangle. Claude Puelles, knee barred. Clay Guida, Macy Barber got back to winning ways. Charles Jourdain got a beautiful guillotine choke. Barry Holt as well got a lovely guillotine choke himself. Lovely KO for Sergey Condozo. The flyer of the week, Tyson Pedro won with 5 seconds to spare in the first round. There's a nice KO as well for Kulin Oori. Then we've Preston Barson, who Daniel Cormier love, Philip Lins, and obviously the Mike Jackson fight as well. At Bellator 278, Barzola, what a win he had there. Obviously I mentioned Liz Carmouche in the main event as well. Danny Sabatello absolutely dominated Jornel Lugo there. Weber Almeida, I'm going to talk about more about this Weber Almeida one maybe over the Severe MMA podcast and other places, but this was a leg kick. What's his opponent's name? Fabricio Franco acted like he was kicked right in the balls, went down, completely faked it, and it shouldn't have been given at all. Blake Perry, great comeback there as well over Macau Cooper, who is a brother of Ray Cooper III, so great stuff there. Bellator 279 in. Arlene Blinko, what a chin, just a few hours out from it here. Chris Cyber, a few minutes even out from it. Chris Cyber, Doug, got the win by unanimous decision, called out Amanda Nunes and Chris, and who she called Kella Harrison afterwards, so we won't see any of them. Look forward to it. Rafi and Stotts, what a head kick knockout as well. Justine Keish beat Elimile McFarlane. Patchy Mix beat Haraguchi. What a win that was. What a great performance there. Yancy Medeiros, one of the best fights we've seen in a while in Bellator, won there as well. And I didn't catch much of the undercard, I won't lie, because the UFC was on. Then in the PFL, I talk more about this obviously in the podcast coming out as well, but one of the fights of the year again, I'll say this was an even better fight. Clay Collard, Jeremy Stevens, as advertised. What a fantastic fight. Haush Maffeo, comeback win against Don Madge, knocked him out there with a halfway through the third round. Antonio Carlos Jr., the champion, got off the winning ways as well with a Bravo choke in the first round there. Livio Aubin Mercier beat Nathan Schultz even, did I say it right? By a split decision. Martin Hamlin out wrestled the guy. There was a few mismatches here on this, honestly, on PFL, but sure, look, that's what you're going to get with PFL. Right, everyone, I will leave it there. And before I go, I must ask you, who are you betting with? UFC Fight Night, Font versus Vera. Can Vera beat the odds and defeat Font, or is Font winning by TKO a given? Get your bets on this weekend at BetUS.com. Use the code Sherdog and get 125% bonus. BetUS.com has been taking bets for well over 25 years, and the reason it's the #1 UFC sportsbook. With more betting options, live betting at games, BetUS.com is your new home for UFC betting. Start the fight at BetUS.com and use that code Sherdog. Alright, everybody, that's it from me, Sean Sheehan for Sherdog.com. I'll see you all next time.